Welcome to the Greater Culture Podcast, where we have conversations about how to elevate the quality of life through movement, nutrition, recovery, and mindset practices. And welcome to another episode of the Greater Culture Podcast. Your host, Brad Marshall here. Today, I am excited to be joined by Dr. Christy Payne, a physical therapist, new physical therapist with Rebel PT, a mom, podcast host, someone who's super passionate about health and wellness, which I'm excited to dive into some fun topics today and hear a little bit about her journey, what led her to becoming a physical therapist, and the ways that she's helping men and women live happier and healthier lives. So Dr. Christy, thanks so much for spending some time with me today.
Yeah, thank you for having me on here. I was telling Brad earlier that this is the first time I've been interviewed, and I have my own podcast, and it's so easy to ask all the questions, but now I'm in the hot seat and I feel nervous.
No pressure at all, right? One of the fun things about this conversation, or at least that I'm excited about, is that we don't know each other super well, but I know we have a lot of shared interests based on some of our small conversations. So I'm excited to see where we go with that. And so I said that you're a newly minted physical therapist and working with Rebel PT. It's always fun to figure out a way to go back to school and learn some new things to help with what you're passionate about. So this idea of health and wellness and helping people get out of pain, live happier and healthier lives. Talk to us a little bit about where that journey started for you that led you down this path to wanting to go back and study physical therapy now.
Yeah, so I've always wanted to do something with my hands and helping people. I didn't really know what that was. I graduated undergrad in 2009, and so really long time ago. And I majored in sport management mostly because I didn't know what else to do. So I'm one of those people that I tried to get into kinesiology, but at the time I moved away from Hawaii. I was born and raised in Hawaii my whole life. I wanted to kind of get off the island to see what there was. Went to Hawaii and I was like, went to Washington State, kind of thought college is my way to kind of get out of here and see the world. So went to college, had no idea what I wanted to do. So I wasted thousands of dollars trying to figure it out. But, along with education, I got a lot of life experience. So that was worth the thousands of dollars, I guess. But I wanted to do kinesiology, but I kind of fooled around my first couple of years in college and couldn't quite make the cut to get into kinesiology. So I did sport management. And from there, my life wasn't really my own after I graduated because I became a military wife. And so with military wife life, we kind of went where the military told us we had to go. And we went to very small towns that had no universities, no nothings around. So I would hold like 3 or 4 jobs at once that were like waitressing jobs, like odd jobs, like helping people with like their businesses, being kind of like a secretary. But I didn't really do much for maybe like 5 or 6 years. And I still was very interested in helping people. And I was trying to figure that out. So around 2010, 2011, I had an opportunity to become a part of a network marketing company. And that's actually, honestly, where all of this started. It was a health and fitness network marketing company. And one of my friends from college was like, yeah, you can get healthy and like help other people get healthy too. And then you can make money off of it. And I was like, all right, this sounds like really sketchy, but I trust you. So sure, like, why not? And it actually ended up changing my life. I don't do it anymore. I do still do the workouts, but I'm not coaching anymore. So the way that it started, she kind of reached out to me at a very low point in my life. And I was really depressed on medication. And I had been going to the gym, but nothing had really like stuck with me or was like kind of helping me get out of this rut. I saw so many videos online that were like, exercise helped me get out of depression. I'm like, let me try that too. But nothing really helped. I would go to the gym, come home, pound a bunch of beers and eat some pizza. So I think there was a disconnect there. But I started this network marketing company. I was working out myself. I started learning how to really eat the proper foods to fuel my body. And with that, I started helping other people do that too. So I was kind of helping myself along the way as I was helping other people. and I lost a bunch of weight. I ended up participating in a bikini competition. And from there, it just kind of like took on like this whole different life. I wasn't depressed anymore, got off medication. I was in the best shape of my life, and I felt like my relationships with other people um, were a lot better because of that too. So from there, we moved to a different state, and we actually moved somewhere close to a university. And I was like, this is finally my chance. Like, I can actually get like a degree in something where I can actually help people and create my own career. So I ended up going to physical therapy school, and I was like the oldest person in my class. So I was like, hopefully I look young enough that nobody will ask me how old I am because I don't want to tell them how old I am. And I ended up being the second oldest person in my class. There was somebody who was in her 50s. So I had like a weird identity crisis going into school again. Um, and so I was like, this is my chance. I get to finally learn something that I can create a career out of where I can use my hands and I can help people. And that was 5 more years actually of education. And I had to do a couple of years of prereqs, and then 3 years of PT school, and finally made it out. And now I'm a PT.
It's amazing the journey and how continuing to work towards things that you're passionate about or help your own health and fitness then leads you to get excited about helping other people. And you mentioned that idea of once you started to eat a certain way and pair that with certain workouts that were really motivating and encouraging, that it helped to change your life. So talk to us a little bit about when you say change your life. What do you mean? Like, was that just kind of like the way you saw yourself and thought about yourself? Obviously, you mentioned that the way you looked changed a
Mhm.
little bit, but talk to us a little bit about that process.
Yeah. So, like I said, I was going to the gym and like hitting it hard, but then coming home and just kind of beating the inside of my body up with all this really horrible food. And I truly believe like you can exercise and that'll be great for the physical aspects of it, even like the mental stuff that happens with like endorphins. But if you're really not properly fueling your body, I feel like you're fighting an uphill battle. So I was drinking a lot. I wasn't getting very good sleep. I was eating really poor food. So all the work that I was doing in the gym was kind of for nothing. And so when I figured out how to eat proper portions for losing weight, but then also maintaining and then building muscle for the bikini competition, um, I was like, I was like, this is wild. Like, how can food do this? Like, how can it change my body and then also help me internally kind of have a clearer mind, be more happy? Because and it's crazy when people are like, how can food do that? I'm like, I literally was doing the exercise thing, just the exercise thing, and there was a piece of it that was missing, and it was the nutrition piece. Like, maybe there are some people who can eat shitty food and then work out and be good. But I truly feel like for the most part, you need both things. Whatever exercise is for you that makes you feel happy and is getting you to whatever goal you want, you have to pair that with some kind of nutrition, again, that also works for you and is trying to get you to where you want to go. So it really was a physical transformation and a mental transformation. And from there, it really empowered me to kind of think about myself like I really have power over myself, and I can I can change my life with just food and exercise. And then from there, a lot of other doors opened up.
Yeah, it's amazing how taking on a holistic view of our health and wellness, what we do for our movement, how we eat, how we sleep, relationships, they all play a role. And if one is going well, but others are not, it's kind of an unbalanced chair that still feels wobbly and still feels unstable. But when we start to put those pieces in place, all of a sudden, next thing you know, wow, like life is moving in a direction that I'd like it to. And I'd love to backtrack one more time here because you mentioned that getting into these things helped to change your life. What was like the impetus for the change? Because I think a lot of folks out there are probably, maybe in a similar boat. I know at one point in time I was too, where you're like, man, like something's got to give, or I've got to make a change, or I'm going to do something different. So, what was that for you? Because it sounded like you had the school, you had a partner at the time, and married, and so something had to give. And Can you speak to what that might have been for you?
So you're asking like what was the thing where I was like kind of the needle that broke the camel's back kind of thing, like
Yeah.
what
Like
brought
what
me.
made you to be like, hey, why do I need to eat right? And why do I want to change
Yeah,
some of these things about the way I'm living right now?
I think it was just kind of stepping outside of myself and seeing how I was treating other people. I think when we lived in New Mexico, that was probably the lowest time in my life ever, and I was newly married. We had only been married maybe a year, and nothing was going right. Like my marriage wasn't going right. The type of people that I was surrounding myself with, like now I'm like, oh my God, like how could I have allowed myself to be around those type of people? And so it was just kind of everything surrounding me was just negative and bad. And I don't know how or why, but like I said, when my friend called me and was like, want to join my challenge group and drink this shake and do these workouts, I remember I was in my kitchen, and again, I was in New Mexico and this was one of the lowest times in my life. And I had just gone through like some kind of manic episode where I had broken a bunch of um, uh, cabinets. Like my cabinets were made out of glass. I had broken a bunch of the glass cabinets, and I was in the process of cleaning it up with my broom. And I got this random phone call, and I was like, I haven't heard from this girl in like 6 years. Why is she calling me? So I picked it up. And at that moment, I didn't realize that I needed the exercise and the nutrition. But for some reason, I was like, take a couple $100s from me and I'll do it. And so again, it was really just everything around me was going bad. And for whatever reason, I told myself this challenge group that my friend was offering me was a way to kind of better myself. And years later, I don't think my friend knows like how much she changed my life with just that one phone call.
Mm, that's really fascinating. I was just reading this book that spoke to that idea that a lot of times when we're looking to buy or purchase products, things like that, we're not necessarily looking for a solution for an external problem. We're more or less looking for solutions for internal problems.
Mm-hmm.
And when you spoke to that idea that the relationships you had weren't the way that you'd like them to be, you weren't interacting with people, and the environment wasn't great, a lot of it was how you were probably talking to yourself and thinking about yourself as it relates to everyone around you.
Yeah.
And so that internal problem, you're like, hey, why not? Why not try this solution and see what happens when I move a certain way and eat a certain way? And I think it's so fascinating because I think a lot of us can relate to that. We are searching for solutions to some of the internal problems. It's like something, the way I see myself or the way I want myself to be isn't in alignment with where I'm at right now. And it's like, what do I want to do about that? Is that kind of what
Yeah.
you've seen too? Because you mentioned that you got a chance to help a lot of people over the years with movement nutrition, and then now even kind of venturing into the PT world.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, so in those early days of me doing like this online health and fitness coaching thing, with that network marketing company, I saw a lot of the same things where people were joining the challenge groups and they didn't really know why, but it somehow helped them with their marriage or issues that they were having surrounding situations they've went through during their lives, whether it was like fertility loss or divorce or anything like that. They were joining the challenge groups, and somehow in that way, that camaraderie, learning how to eat right, and the exercise helped them to deal with those situations. And I do really think what was really positive about this network marketing company and kind of how they approached this whole thing was they really harped on mental health. And so what they pushed for the coaches to do was to read books to better themselves. And I thought that was a crock of shit. I was like, reading books for personal development, this is so stupid. I I was like not on board with it, and my coach sent me a book called The Slight Edge, and I opened it begrudgingly, and I was like, this is going to be so dumb. I can't believe I'm doing this. These are the kind of people that I laugh at. At the time, that's like what I was thinking. And halfway through the book, I was like, this is amazing. And I couldn't get enough of it. And then I started buying all of the books that I could think of. I would go in our Facebook page and like, what kind of books are you guys reading? And now I have so many books around my house. Like I could probably create like a whole library. And that, so the eating right, the exercise, great. But if you can't change your mindset about certain things and you can't figure out how to approach situations, how to talk to yourself, how to talk to other people, how to just deal with things, that's kind of what the personal development helped with me mentally, along with those other things too. But I was really thankful for that because I've carried all of that into my life now, like 10 plus years later.
It's amazing to me how many people figure things out when it comes to mindset, the conversation that's unfolding in our head moment to moment by themselves or through School of Hard Knocks. Like things get so bad or things get so challenging that they just figure it out. And sometimes it's a book, sometimes it's a podcast or an article or a friend or something like that. And it's amazing how that little shift can start you down a path that completely looks different than the way you were going. And even when you start thinking about this idea of mindset of just, oh, that's BS, that's hocus, and then you start getting into it, and you're like, wow, the way you talk to yourself does actually make a difference.
Oh,
And
yeah.
what were some of the maybe small things initially that you started to notice a difference there? Because I think that's sometimes the harder one for us to pinpoint.
Hmm.
When we start eating a certain way or working out, maybe our clothes fit differently, we have more energy, things like that. But when you start talking about mindset and working on your mindset, that one can be a little bit more subtle when to notice some of those differences or changes. So what were some of the things early on, maybe even halfway through that book, that you were like, oh, this is different?
Yeah. I think I definitely noticed in, not necessarily in that book, but in other books that I started reading, and then just conversations I was having with these people who seem to have figured it out in these groups. Um, just I noticed the way that I was talking to myself was so bad, and I didn't realize that I was doing that. And people would always say, talk to yourself how you would talk to somebody that you love. And I'm like, I would never say what I say to myself to other people. And it just seems so easy to talk badly to myself and about myself. And I realized I just didn't feel worthy of like good things. And so I guess I would just maybe sabotage myself with like the bad eating, surrounding myself with the really bad people. I just didn't feel worthy of like of better relationships or a better body or whatever. And I didn't take the time to work on myself because I thought that was hocus pocus, and that like
Mm-hmm.
the person that I am and the way that I think is just how I was born and how I'm going to carry myself through the rest of my life. I thought I was not, I didn't have a growth mindset at all. I was very, this is me and this is who I'm going to be for the rest of my life. So I
Mm-hmm.
didn't feel worthy. I definitely spoke very badly to myself. And once I kind of started talking better to myself, I started loving myself more. I was that one person that I started meditating um, early on after starting these groups, and I got like really uncomfortable with being by myself. Like just the silence, but like also being by myself. And I realized like I just didn't like myself and I didn't like being around myself. And so that uncomfortableness of trying to meditate in silence by myself was really hard. And so I started realizing that I spoke badly to myself, and that made me hate myself. And so when I changed those things, being by myself is, I love it now. I love being by myself. I like other people too, but I
Yeah.
really enjoy my own company.
I think it's a vicious cycle. What you just highlighted there is, we have this thought or we have something that ruminates or just kind of hangs there. And for you, you mentioned this idea of I'm not worthy, and how that just really perpetuates all areas of life then, and it showcases itself in the way you interact with others, the way you interact with yourself, and the decisions you make. And it can be so subtle and so nuanced that we don't even catch it and we're not even
Hmm.
aware of it. And then all of a sudden you did catch it, and then you start figuring it out and working on some different things. And taking time to be in silence, allowing yourself to, hey, I've got these thoughts and this conversation that's constantly unfolding. Am I even tuned in and aware of it? Because most of the time we try and distract ourselves and avoid at all costs being by ourselves because it might not be a very comfortable place for us.
Yeah.
And meditation is such a powerful tool. Absolutely love it as an exercise for folks. What did that journey and process look like for you to begin? What was your meditation practice like? Were you using different apps or different resources to be guided? Was it more of just setting a timer and hanging out and sitting there? Or what did that look like for you?
I first started with the Headspace app
Oh, great
because,
voice there.
yeah, yeah, it really is. I don't know if you know, but they have it on Netflix now. They have,
Hmm.
yeah. So I started with Headspace. I got very addicted to the guy's voice. And then
Hmm.
they were like, you get a free trial and now you can't listen anymore. I'm like, take my money. Like, I don't care. So, so I ended up paying for it. But I tried the sit in silence sort of thing. And again, I was just very uncomfortable by myself. And I was like, I thought meditation was total silence and I was fighting thinking about things. And meditation is different for everybody. But I realized that meditation can include thought if you want it to. And for, so I started with the Headspace app because the guided meditation really helped me focus um, on like breathing, on getting rid of like negative thoughts. It just helped me focus more. So I started with that. And the more comfortable I got with the guided meditation, I went to podcasts, and some of the episodes would have the guided meditation in the beginning, and then they would have like a few minutes of silence. Um, and then from there, I got very comfortable with it. And so I would just set a timer and I would either lay down or sit down, and I would like burn some incense. And I'm like not like a crunchy person, but I would like burn some incense and then I would just lay there and I would get so relaxed that I would just like fall asleep. And
Hmm.
so it really morphed. I was guided meditation and then into just me kind of thinking about me kind of relaxing, and I really was trying to like clear my head with meditation. And if in the beginning of the meditation I couldn't clear my thoughts, I kind of just thought about my thoughts as like little bubbles. And if a thought was appearing, I would recognize it and I would just kind of imagine myself popping the bubble with a like a needle or something. And eventually I would pop all of these bubbles and then my mind would just be completely clear. So I would, recognize the thought, pop it, and then it would disappear.
Yeah, those practices that you just highlighted, one, for anyone who's looking at getting into a practice, having guided meditation is a great start. So whether it's an app or something like that can be super helpful to kind of get you down the path. And then once you've established a practice and you feel a little bit more comfortable, now you can go and adventure off into different types of mindfulness and meditation. And so I love the metaphor of the thoughts being bubbles. And I think so many of us, when we sit down to try and be in silence for a little bit, and we have those thoughts start racing and we're like, see, this is why I suck at this and I'm not good at this and this is
Yeah.
so frustrating. And it's like, that's not the point. The point is exactly what you highlighted, to notice and be aware. Hey, there's a lot of noise going on in my head right now. There's a lot of thoughts and they're speeding by super quickly.
Mm-hmm.
And sooner or later, you start to notice them. You can start to pinpoint them. You can put them in bubbles. You can pop them. You can give them some extra attention or time. You can let them pass. But you start to realize, like, hey, I have a sense of control over
Mm-hmm.
what's unfolding in my head. And that
Yeah.
power is really, really something special. Is that kind of your experience?
Yeah, definitely. And I would also do that with like physical discomfort. Because when I would go to lay down or sit down, I, would be like itchy or like whatever, like, oh, I'm like so uncomfortable. This isn't working. I don't want to do this anymore. So I did the same thing, not with bubbles, but I would do kind of body scanning. And some of the episodes in the podcast apps would go through that. But then eventually, I was comfortable doing it by myself. So I would just do my own body scanning. But I would think about um, like a sun being above me and then kind of pouring like golden light into my body. And then it would start at my head and go through like my whole body. And I would just kind of think like, am I having a headache right now? Like, what am I feeling here? And then thinking about sending love. This sounds so like weird, but like sending love into that part of my body, and the light kind of being that love or whatever, and then slowly going down. If my back hurt, I would just recognize it for what it was, and think about like that golden light, kind of loving it or whatever, and then eventually get down to my toes. And after that, I would feel completely relaxed, and then I could just lay there and meditate, um, and not feel discomfort physically, or mentally.
Yeah, the body scan practice and then throwing in the visualization component to that is super powerful. It's amazing how our brains remember and hold on to a lot of things that have happened to us,
Mhm.
both good and traumatic. And when we start getting headaches and aches and pains and things like that, your brain is working really, really hard to protect you. And sometimes that manifests itself with some of that stressful headaches, stressful body parts, and like you mentioned, just this idea of kind of reassuring your brain and your body it's okay, like
Yeah.
you're going to be okay. All of a sudden you'll notice how some of those things dissipate.
Yep.
So it's super, super fascinating stuff that you can work through when it comes to mirroring sort of brain body mindfulness meditation. So really, really powerful practice. And it sounds like with mindset training, getting into meditation and getting into mindfulness helps you to have a better conversation with yourself, helps
Mhm.
you to have better relationships with those around you. And it sounded like that sort of was a catalyst to give you the confidence then to go back to school. Because, like you mentioned, making a career change, being that far removed from school is a
Mhm.
tough thing. And you
Yeah.
mentioned some of the imposter syndrome, whatever you want to call it, going back to school as someone who's second oldest in the class was a little challenging. But talk to us about what gave you the confidence, the courage to say, hey, you know what? Let's go do this. Let's go spend some more time in school so I can work on helping people with my hands.
Yeah. It's crazy because I'm like, it would have been so much better if I had started this PT journey when I was younger. But I think everything happens for a reason, and I just wasn't ready for it. And I needed to experience those really low lows and experience the growth that happened physically and mentally. And up until the point where I got into PT school, I think all of that helped better me, and helped prepare me to apply to PT school, get into PT school, go through PT school, and then come out and be able to help other people. And so, yeah, just being it was just everything kind of fell into place, and I didn't know it until now. Like, now that I'm out, I'm like, everything happened the way that it was supposed to happen. Because had I gone to school early on, I would have been a horrible PT probably, because I wouldn't have known who I was, first of all. Like, when I got into PT school, I was so sure of who I was. Not that person that thought like, "Oh, I'm going to be this person for the rest of my life," but I was so sure of who I was, what kind of person I was, um how I would react in certain situations, how to talk to people. I was just more confident with everything that happened, with learning how to exercise, learning how to eat, showing myself that I was in control of all of that, and with the meditation. And then when I had my interview for PT school, I was 4 weeks, 3 weeks postpartum, and so uh, becoming like a new mom and kind of feeling empowered. Like, I'm going to be one of the oldest people in the class, but feeling empowered. Like, I have all these life experiences and things that I've gone through, that have shaped who I am. And I'm going to use that to my advantage, going through school and, being a PT. But it, it was hard. I had to, I found these notes that I wrote to myself. It was hard going through school, being older. Also, learning how to learn again was really hard. And everybody else in class like didn't have anybody to take care of. They had a dog or a plant, but they didn't have anything else. And I had a military husband who was leaving all the time, had to take care of my kid, my house, my animals, and I got to be really hard sometimes. And I had written myself notes and also taken video of myself when it got hard. And that was kind of my way of dealing with things. And so, like, years later, I had forgotten that I had even written these things, and I found them on my phone. And it was it was just me kind of talking to myself, like talking myself out of what I was thinking. So I said all the negative thoughts about myself, like, I'm too old, all these people have all this experience, I have nothing. And then I was like, but check yourself. And then I talked to myself like I would talk to somebody that I loved. And had I not gone through those challenge groups early on, the exercise, the, meditation, I wouldn't have had that tool. And had I not had that tool to be able to check myself and talk to myself like I loved myself, I probably wouldn't have made it through PT school. So,
Mm.
um, so yeah, just everything that happened before I think really helped set me up to be successful in school.
Yeah, I
I don't
think
know
it
if I answered
speaks
your
to this.
question.
No, I think yeah, you certainly did, and I think it speaks to this idea that like when the internal world feels more stable, feels stronger, like you know who you are, you know what you're about, you know what you stand for, it makes the external world a little bit more palatable, or makes it a little bit easier to navigate, especially when you go through difficult times, difficult situations, something to fall back on. And like you said, it helps you be a better practitioner because you've got a lot of these experiences under your belt. You can relate to people a little bit more effectively. You're not just walking or talking the talk, you're also walking the walk of how to take care of your body, how to take care of your mind, how to take care of these things in your life. So when you start working with clients, you can do that as well. And one thing you mentioned there at the end that I think is really powerful is you just outlined for us how to actually build confidence. Confidence being a mental skill of what's your belief like and what you're capable of and what you can do. And we're going to have those doubts and those insecurities. Doesn't matter how much you meditate, doesn't matter how much gratitude you practice. Like sooner or later, you're going to have doubts and insecurities. And what do we do with that? And the strategy that you just outlined of recognizing it, but then also being able to identify these are the specific reasons why I've earned the right to be confident or I can overcome the situation. That is how we build confidence that is actually sustainable. So I think that's a really cool tool. Maybe you realize that maybe you didn't in the moment. That is something all of us can learn from and we can take with us. And so working through that, you got through PT school, you finished it up. What was next for you, or what are some of the like the goals or aspirations you have? Because you've done a lot of things leading up to that. You went to PT school with some goals and some ideas of what you might have wanted to get into in mind. You're done with it. So what's sort of the next phase, or what were you excited to get into then?
Yeah. So I was definitely excited about helping people with my hands. That's like what I wanted to do from the beginning for like years. And now I had the chance to do it. And after graduating from school, it was actually kind of scary because I'm like, well, now I have to make a decision on like what my life is going to look like. I have to choose. I was so scared that I was going to make the wrong decision. But after like surrounding yourself with great people who have experience and have great mindsets, I spoke with one of my mentors, and she's like, don't not make a decision because you're afraid to make the wrong decision. You can change your mind later on. I'm like, oh yeah, I can totally change my mind. Like, why am I was so stuck in fear. I knew what I wanted, but I was kind of talking myself out of it. And um, so working for Rebel PT, first job out of school, I had actually reached out to Courtney through Instagram. I saw like they had put a Rebel Cycle and Rebel PT, pelvic PT, and I was like, it was my second year in school, I think. I was like, oh my God, I totally want to do that. So I got on Instagram and I was like, hi, I'm a student at Campbell and I want to be a pelvic PT one day. Nice to meet you. She just messaged me back and I was like, I want to work here. Like, I didn't know much about it. I didn't know insurance and like all of that. I didn't know anything about Rebel, but I was like, pelvic PT clinic, cool, in downtown Varina. This looks awesome. And then as I got to kind of know her a little bit more, I'm like, this sounds like the perfect place for me to be. What I was looking for was I had a kid, a husband that's always gone. I was looking for a place that would allow me to um, be able to pick my son up and drop him off without having to rush places. So I was really looking for like a flexibility of schedule. Yes, I have bills to pay, but I really wanted flexibility of schedule, and I wanted to be able to work in the pelvic PT world. That was kind of my jam. Um, being being a mom and kind of seeing what healthcare looks like in America was kind of scary for me, and I kind of wanted to be part of the change that happens with postpartum care. And And talking with Courtney, I could do that. She was like, I love your ideas. If you want to offer that, like that, we can run with that. And so just kind of all of my ideas, both of our ethos, everything kind of like fell into place. And I was like, thank God I'm such a weirdo. And I just like message people like out of the blue and I'm like, be my friend. Because had I not had the confidence to do that, I don't know if I'd be at Rebel PT. But yeah, so anyway, so I was looking to treat females postpartum pelvic. Like that was what I wanted to do. And so again, like confidence, everything fell into place. I reached out to her, and then after school, I was able to join Rebel. Again, I don't know if I answered your question.
You're doing a good job of working around the question, and I'm finding the nuances and the answers in there. So yeah, what I gathered from that was the passion for you was this idea of women's health and
Mm-hmm.
pelvic PT, being a mom, understanding what healthcare is like in the U.S. and how things are operating for folks, especially after they give birth.
Mm-hmm.
Because I think when we think about physical therapy, at least for me, as a guy, I think about like, okay, you go get surgery, you got to get rehabilitated to get back to healthy. If you're in the fitness space, or if you're working out a lot, or if you get some tweaks and nagging injuries, go get some PT help. That'll help you to get out of pain, get back to moving the way you want. But for me, it's not something that comes top of mind, and I think for others too, of like, hey, there's this whole world that's very special and utilized by women, whether it's working through pregnancy, after pregnancy, and what that can look like. And so I think that's really cool to be passionate about that, and then have the confidence to say, hey, let me reach out to this person, see what happens, and see what that entails. So this idea of pelvic PT, help educate somebody if they're like, what's that all about? I understand the pelvis, but like, what is that occupation, or what do you help people with? What would you describe, or how would you characterize that?
Yeah. So I would say that everyone has a pelvis, male or female. So at Rebel right now, we're only treating females for pelvic PT. And that can look anything like urinary or bowel incontinence. So a lot of pregnant women, postpartum women pee when they sneeze, cough, laugh, jump. And you hear a lot of that with like athletes too.
Mm-hmm.
And whether or not you've had a baby, you can still experience incontinence. And so it looks a lot like helping people like that, helping women through pregnancy, helping them get get kind of ready for labor and delivery. So keeping up strength and conditioning, making sure they have really good hip mobility, working on breathing, working on any kind of internal restrictions within the pelvic floor that they have. So we do external exams, and if the patient is comfortable with it and we get consent from them, we can do an internal exam. Because a lot of times, if they're like coming in for back pain or something that doesn't really seem pelvic related, a lot of times, like that missing piece is because they have some sort of pelvic dysfunction, pelvic floor dysfunction. And so it looks like a lot of different things, pregnancy, postpartum, people who haven't had babies yet. It could just be low back pain, hip pain. But I really do think like if the patient does consent, internal exams are a huge key to the whole assessment.
Yeah, it's fascinating. One thing I feel like I've learned the more I talk to physical therapists and chiropractors, massage therapists, how things are so interconnected,
Mm-hmm.
where you might be experiencing some kind of pain or sensation in one part of the body, and you realize how it might be something completely different, or a different source or area that's causing some of those issues and challenges. So having people who are well versed in how things operate and how things are connected can be really helpful, especially for folks who are like, man, I've just been dealing with this forever, and I just assume that's the way people live their lives. And you're like, well, there's actually people who can help with that and get you out of pain. And it's not the way life has to be or the way it has to unfold. So I think it's
Yeah.
really cool to have specialists in these areas that can be useful. And so as you studied in physical therapy school, and then you got interested in really getting into the pelvic world, what does that look like in terms of understanding, educating, practice, etc., to go down that specialization or go down that route of wanting to help and treat people with that?
So in PT school, you have maybe two one-day classes on pelvic PT, and that looks like treating. All they talk all they talk about is pregnant women, and so we get two classes on like pregnancy and postpartum, and that's it. So there's really not much education on how to be a pelvic PT or what it is in school. But I didn't even know pelvic PT was a thing when I had my kid. Had my OB told me about it, I probably would have not referred myself, but I probably would have made an appointment just to kind of get things checked out. And so I don't remember if I had a conversation with somebody or what it was, but I learned about pelvic PT and I'm like, that sounds interesting. Let me kind of check that out. And I was like, yeah, this is totally what I want to do. I want to help women, and this would be like a really cool way to do it. So, like I said, you don't have a lot of education in school, but you can get certifications through different agencies outside of school. So I got Herman and Wallace certified for the first pelvic floor class. So that's just vaginal. And during my third year of school, me and like 4 or 5 other girls joined like a video chat. You can go to an in-person class or you can do like a virtual thing. So we did a virtual class for a whole weekend, and they taught you how to do external exams as well as internal exams. And then from there, you take a test, you get your certification. And I was lucky enough to be able to get a rotation in for pelvic health at WakeMed at the hospital here in Cary. And so I did 16 weeks there, and I was able to treat pelvic patients, all females, for a bunch of different things. And I didn't really see postpartum or pregnant women all that much at WakeMed. It was a lot of other things, and anyone from like 21 years old to like 95. I saw such a wide array of people. And another thing that pelvic PTs help with is something called dyspareunia, which is pain with intercourse. And so, funny enough, my 95-year-old lady that I had was there for pain with intercourse, and so it was like very eye-opening to me, like the type of people that come in and like how we can help them. So it was really cool. It was weird at first, but it was really cool. So anyway, so I got my certification. It was required to do my rotation at WakeMed. Did 16 weeks there. Learned a lot, and then from there, got a job with Rebel. But the one thing I don't really like about the pelvic space is that with a lot of the other like certifications, you actually have to, like, it's like a real certification. Not saying that like what I have is not real, but it's a lot more like anybody can call themselves a pelvic PT and they really not have the training for it. They didn't get Herman and Wallace certified or certified by the APTA or anything like that. Haven't really taken, like maybe they took like a 2-hour course online and they're like, I'm a pelvic PT. And so I would say if you're a patient looking to get pelvic PT, make sure you're doing your research. And I mean, there's going to be people like me who are newer at pelvic PT, but I've taken courses, I've had a rotation, I have some experience and not just taken a 2-hour course and I'm calling myself a pelvic PT. So I would say with anything, do your research and make sure you're actually going to somebody who like knows what they're doing and isn't just saying that they do it, if that makes sense.
No, that makes a ton of sense. And I think that's really helpful to outline that because I think physical therapy, like a lot of other industries, it can be such a broad and general term of what they can do and what they can help and who they can help, that the more nuanced and the more specialized you get, if there's a challenge or an issue that really is specialized or requires a certain level of attention, to go find the right person to help you with that. And I've even learned that too and I've been very grateful for Courtney because she's helped treat a variety of things that I know I've experienced, and there's certain things that she's like, I'm not as good at that as someone else is. So you should go talk to this physical therapist about that specific thing. And I think that's really cool and helpful that you understand what your lane is, you understand what you're good at, what you know, and help treat people in that way. And then when it feels like it's outside your purview or this isn't exactly what I'm comfortable with, hey, let's get you the help you need. So I think that's really important for folks listening, like you said, to if you're going for a specific issue or challenge, asking, seeing what their background is, seeing if it's something they can help with or they specialize with. And maybe even asking them like, hey, have you treated other people with this issue or have you seen other folks with this? And that can give you a lot of confidence then that you're getting the right attention for the challenge or the issues. And I think that's really fascinating. What you mentioned there too was that even when you said you had a kid, that it wasn't really mainstream. It wasn't something that was offered leading up to or even after, other than maybe an OB's saying, hey, maybe you should check this out. So I think it's interesting how much it's grown even over the last couple of years.
Yeah. And my kid's only not even 5 yet. And so really wasn't that long ago. And I just went in for my 6-week checkup and they were like, everything's good to go. And it's kind of funny because it's like, they just take a little look-see in there and like make sure everything's okay. And they don't know if you're okay to get back to like your previous level of function. They don't know like what your prior exercise routine was like how do they know if you're okay? And then they don't give you that education on like graded exposure to like get back to maybe, and then maybe that's not their scope of practice. But if it's not, they should be referring people to who can help them with that, which would be like a pelvic PT. And so yeah, I didn't get any education at all on that. And so I really try to tell everybody who will listen to me about pelvic PT, whether or not you need it, just know that it's out there and tell your friends about it. And some people just come in to like get checked out and they're like, I'm not having any issues. I just want to see if everything's okay. And a lot of times like those people are fine and we can find some things that they can work on, but they just come in just to make sure everything's okay.
Mm-hmm. That is a funny, I'm not going to call it a coincidence, but I guess the natural course of working with an expert is you can go in and be like, I actually feel pretty good today. I think I'm fine. And all of a sudden the massage therapist or the physical therapist starts working and you're like, oh, okay, I guess I'm not fine. You found all the areas that need some love and attention. So I appreciate you going and finding all of them because I didn't realize that was sore, that was not working the way it should. So I think that's always funny when that's the case as an expert in your field. So I think that's really, really fascinating, how to educate folks and how to just, whether it's maintenance, precautionary, sort of just those wellness checkups of, hey, this is an important area that connects to and impacts a lot of other areas of the body that can be super helpful just to get some insight in. And then when you're experiencing those challenges, you can have the confidence like, hey, this is something that we can work through or we can help improve. And so I know you've been working for a little bit now, getting a chance to see some clients, and you've had this strong passion for helping people, especially working with your hands. So when you start thinking about how you impact other people's lives, what are some of the things that you're most excited about or get you really fired up to get up in the morning and help other people? Is there something that comes to mind for you that's like, this is the passion, I'm pursuing it, but these are the things that get me really excited to get up and get after it each day?
Yeah, it sounds like so cliche, but I just love making some sort of positive impact in people's lives, whether it's like saying, hey, I think this would be a really good book for you to read or a good podcast for you to listen to. But my first patient at Rebel seemed like it was going to be so challenging because of all of the comorbidities that she had. And I was like, great, this is going to be my first patient. And there's so many things going on with her. And she ended up being like that win that I needed to be like, cool, like I can do this. And I mean, I'd had, 2 16-week rotations before that, working at an ortho clinic and then a pelvic PT clinic. And so I'd had a lot of like, wins as a student, but having that first win as like a real PT was so powerful for me. And so just like when patients come in and they're like, I don't have this pain anymore, or I'm able to have sex with my husband again. And it's been, like months and we haven't been able to do this, or I can actually squat down to like play with my kid on the floor. Just like really little things like that seem little, but like impact their lives so greatly. Like if you can't get on the floor to play with your kid, like that really sucks, you know? And if sex is really important in your relationship and you're not able to have that connection with your partner, like that really sucks too. And so just going to work every day and being excited to talk to patients to see like what are the small changes that are happening. um, and it could be something really small, like my pain level has always been at like a 7 out of 10 or whatever, and now it's a 4 out of 10. Like that seems like a very incremental change. But over time it's it's going to be such a huge thing, and it's all about those incremental changes. And I've had to remind patients and myself because I'm like, got to get like everything done within the first like 2 or 3 visits. We got to see all this progress. And I have to remind myself, like, a lot of these people have had chronic issues for years and years and years. We're not going to just, clear that up in 2 visits. And
Hmm.
so there have been some patients that come in and they feel so defeated. And I'm like, okay, well, tell me about like where your pain level is at right now, and tell me about what are the things that you're able to do now. And they tell me, and then I put it into perspective. Like, this is exactly what you told me the first time I met you, and now this is what you're telling me today. And they don't really put the pieces together. They haven't really seen, like, they see the change, but then when you put it into perspective of like what has actually changed, they they think like, wow, I have come a long way. And so being able to put things into perspective for patients is really fun too. So just getting like those really small wins, and even really big wins obviously are nice, but so that people can have meaningful change in their lives, so that they can just do the things they want to do. Like, I have patients who want to get back to running without peeing, and there's one woman who isn't peeing when she's running anymore. Again, pain with intercourse. There's another patient who has very minimal pain, and she hadn't been able to have sex with her husband for a really long time. So just getting those really small wins is kind of what gets me excited about the day.
It is funny, and I feel like focusing on the small wins is so important as a coach, PT, whatever your role is, because things don't happen overnight. Things take time, the consistency, the dedication to show up and just keep doing the little things to move the needle. Things didn't get to where they were in a very short amount of time, so it makes sense they're not necessarily going to improve in a super short amount of time. And being able to be that sounding board and let people know that they're on the right path, they're moving in the right direction, look at how much progress we've made so far, and it gives them even just that hope of things can continue to get better, and maybe it builds some of that optimism and they can keep going on the path. So I think that's really, really cool, especially in your role of helping people with those small wins, the things that a lot of us probably even take for granted that we just get to experience or we get to do, and realizing, hey, that world is still open to all these other folks too, especially if they've gone through different challenges. So I love that, the small wins. Now, I know
Yeah.
you're somebody who has a variety of rituals and habits and things you like to do to help keep you kind of on track in your life, from the mindset practices to movement to nutrition, all those things. When you start to think about just best practices that you either recommend or you like to share with others as like, hey, if you can get some of these things moving in the right direction, it's amazing how much your life might be able to change or keep going. What are some of those daily practices, daily habits that stand out for you that you like to share with others?
Yeah. So when I think about that question, it brings me back in the day to reading the Miracle Morning. And uh my Miracle Morning has morphed into something different over the years. But the things that I've taken from that book and really focused on, it looks different now that I'm a mom. I used to get up at 3:30 or 4 o'clock in the morning, and I would do my Miracle Morning. I While I was doing my Miracle Morning, I would eat my snack, drink my pre-workout, do my workout, and then go to work. And it was so fun. I loved like getting up before everybody else, before the sun got up, and starting my day like that was just so fun. And then I became a mom, and then that didn't work anymore. And I don't think I'm like a type A person, but I definitely like routine. And that just really threw a wrench in the mix. And I had to take a few weeks and months to figure out, what does this look like for me now? Because I need those things. I need to do those things to be a good mom. You know, they talk about putting your mask on before you put the person next to you's mask on the airplane. Like, you really have to fill your cup up before you can pour into others. And as as a mom, as moms don't really think like that. They think that that's selfish. They think, if I work on me first, then that's putting everybody else on the back burner. But really, it's not. If you're working on yourself first, whatever that practice looks like, you show up better for the people that you care about. And so, I really, if it seems like a lot, and so I'll tell you what I think is a good practice, but it has to be tailored to each person's lifestyle. So what I did in the beginning, I would read 10 pages out of like a personal development book, like not Harry Potter or anything like that, like something like a personal development book. I'd read for 10 pages. I would meditate for 10 minutes. I can't remember everything that I did before, but now I read 10 pages. I meditate for 10 minutes. Affirmations, because like I said, how you talk to yourself is very important. And I wasn't talking to myself very kindly. So I took the things in my mind that I was saying negatively to myself, and then I kind of flipped them and made them positive. So I typed these things out on a piece of paper, and I would say these affirmations out loud to myself in a power pose. And so for 10 minutes, I would say all of these affirmations. And then I would go do my workout. So I think if you can read a good book, if you can take 10 minutes to, or however much time you have to listen to a guided meditation or sit in silence, say a few kind things to yourself out loud. The out loud part, I feel like, is very powerful. And then exercise. If you can do all of those things, also drink water and get some good sleep, I think you're good.
Yeah, it is amazing because I think those things highlight the holistic picture of, can we take care of our mind? Can we take care of our body? Can we take care of our, if you want to call it your stress levels, but just thinking through sleep and recovery. Those are really, really important. And for some folks, stacking those in the morning to make sure your day gets off on the right foot is a great strategy. For others, layering them in throughout the day as it seems fit with family and work and all the other schedules. So finding the moments to get in some of those practices that allow you to put your own mask on first before treating everyone else is going to be really, really helpful. And with that, I've got one more question for you that I always like to ask folks. And if you start thinking through this idea of principles, standards, some even think like this idea of values or core beliefs that sort of guide or influence the way you think, the way you interact with the world, the way you show up for yourself and others. Are there things that come to mind for you that you would say, like, hey, these are the standards, the principles that kind of guide and influence the way I see and the way I interact with the world?
Ask me that again.
Yeah. So some folks have this idea of like core values, like the things that are like, these are the bedrock, like these are what really influence how I think, how I show up for others. These are like my non-negotiables, my principles or standards. Are there certain things that stand out for you as like, hey, no matter what, at the end of the day, these are the things that I hang my hat on, or the things that are really important to me, and they influence or they impact the way I show up as a mom, the way I show up as a physical therapist, and things like that?
Mm-hmm. Well, when I think of non-negotiables, I do think of the practice that I just explained to you. And my core values, I think, are just, if I can leave someone better than when they first interacted with me, if they can leave our conversation or our interaction better than before, then I think that that's great. Like, I always live by the motto of be the change you wish to see in the world, and kind of taking that throughout my day, whether I have road rage try to think like, be the change you want to see in the world. You don't want to be part of this road rage, like something so stupid like that. But even with everything that we've discussed today, kind of carrying all of this knowledge and experience and things that I've learned that have helped me, and kind of putting that out into the world, and so that other people can have that experience and that change that I've seen in my life. So I think just if I can go throughout my day and think, be the change that I wish to see in the world, that kind of culminates all the things that we've talked about today, and how I want to treat other people. Yeah.
I love it. I love that you've got it condensed down to a simple phrase, this idea of being the change you wish to see in the world. You've experienced the personal change in your own development and over the course of your own life, and then wanting to be able to share that with others, whether it's through movement and nutrition, now having the opportunity to help people with physical therapy and pelvic floor specialty, and how that's all manifested over time has been really cool to hear, and hear how you've chased down your passion, and now it's leading to this life that you get really excited about, to wake up each day and figure out how to make a change in others people's lives. And so along with that, if people are interested in connecting with you, you have a very vibrant personality on social media, which I always think is super fun to watch and engage with. How can people get in touch with you, or how can folks reach out if they're interested to just follow your journey, or also work with you with some of the pelvic PT stuff?
Yeah. So I have a couple of different Instagram handles. My personal page is christy.m.payne. That's my personal page. And my pelvic PT page is Dr. Christy Payne. And I was really excited, something stupid. I was really excited when I graduated PT school. I'm like, I'm going to get to call myself Dr. Payne. Like, that's going to be like, boom, like so funny. And then Courtney started introducing me as Dr. Christy. And I was like, well, I guess I'm going to roll with that now. But I'm super excited about being like, I'm Dr. Payne, and have it be funny. And my husband still, I was like hoping one day that I would be Dr. Payne, and he's in the Air Force, and his rank is was major, and so Major Payne and Dr. Payne. I'm like, this is gonna be so funny, it's gonna be so great. Something really stupid, but that was a little thing that helped me through school sometimes when I was sad. Anyway, so Dr. Christy Payne or christy.m.payne, those are my two Instagram handles. And on the PT page, I share just PT stuff, and then on the other one, I share more about like my life. And if anybody ever wants to, do like a discovery call, like a free discovery call, see if PT is right for you, any kind of PT. We do all kinds of PT there, not just pelvic. You can, or if you like want an assessment or an evaluation, you want PT, you can always reach out to us at rebelpt.com, I think is the website. And you can fill out the form there, and then we'll reach out to you. You can always just message me too.
Yeah. Highly recommend Rebel PT. I know I've been working with Courtney for a while now, and excited that Dr. Payne is part of the team. So excited to hear how things continue to evolve for you over there, and how you continue to help people with their health and wellness. But this has been a lot of fun, getting a chance to chat and catch up and learn a little bit more about you and your story. And I appreciate you coming on the podcast and sharing that with everyone.
Yeah, thank you for having me. This is really fun.